Hey, hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and today I'm reviewing this, a Bentley Continental GT V8S convertible. So I'll spend a brief amount of time going over the Continental GT's details and really be focusing in on the overall experience this older generation Bentley provides. So with that, let's get started with this review of the Bentley Continental GT V8S convertible. Alright, so let's start the review off by giving a big thank you to Porsche of downtown LA for giving me access to this beautiful Continental GT today. If you happen to be interested in this car or any other new or pre-owned Porsche product, make sure you give them a call. I've left their information in the description below. Now, let's get started with the looks and the overall experience, or essentially the way this thing makes you feel when you look at it in person. So starting off with the color, at first sight it looks black, but it's not. It's actually a shade of brown, and it's very, very nice. It looks somewhat mysterious with the change in color under different lighting, and when you get that subtle shade of brown, it just screams expensive and luxurious. And speaking of experience, even though this is an older generation Bentley, it's still a Bentley with the flying B logo in front of the hood, so it's definitely got the flex appeal. And because this is a V8S, it has a unique looking front bumper and grille and those signature quad tailpipes in the back. This Bentley still has a lot of style. Alright, so now let's talk about the engine details, but one really cool item, and to the note of experience, the hood latch of this car is actually beautiful, and I don't think I've ever mentioned that about a hood latch before, but this one is a little different. It's an all metal piece. It's very sturdy and looks very luxurious, and it just screams prestige. So even the exercise of opening up the hood on your Bentley is an experience. Now let's talk about this engine. So this is a 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 making 521 horsepower and 502 pounds-feet of torque. It's mated to a 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, and it's putting power down to all 4 wheels. Now, speaking of the all-wheel drive system, it is rear-wheel biased and sends 60% of the power to the rear wheels. Now, as far as its weight goes, it is a big, luxurious convertible car, so it is on the heavier side, 5,500 pounds, so this is as heavy, or if not heavier, than a lot of SUVs on the market today. But all of this translates to a 0 to 60 time of 4.5 seconds and a top speed of 191 miles an hour. But one of the more important things about engine and the overall experience with the engine is the noise that it makes. So let me take you around back so you can take a listen to the exhaust. Alright, so what would a convertible car's review be without me showing you the convertible and just the overall experience of operating it and just how it feels? So now, there is a metal cover button right here underneath the shifter. You push on that, this convertible top will start to open up. And the process itself takes a while. My stopwatch clocked it at 30 seconds, which is probably the longest operating convertible that I've ever experienced. So it's not up to par with new convertible tops, but the coolest thing about it is that the cloth on the interior is covered in this beautiful sway material. And again, this points to the experience of luxury and prestige, and it continues on with the convertible top. Now, closing it, it takes the same amount of time, 30 seconds again. So I'll give you an idea of how the convertible top drop top experience feels during the driving portion of the review. But before we get to the drive, let's talk about the interior and what it feels like in here. Alright, so now the interior of the Continental GT, and this is probably where you're going to physically interact or experience this car the most. And let me tell you something, this is such an exquisitely put together, crafted It's just such a luxurious place to be. It's truly amazing that this is a prior generation interior. And when you sit in this thing, it feels like you're sitting in one of those very luxurious, broken in chairs at a very expensive hotel where everything you see around you looks very expensive, and it's no different in this Bentley. Literally everything is covered in leather or has some type of wood on it, or some type of metal like aluminum or metal looking type of material. And as far as the quality goes, Bentley is one of the most meticulous companies with relation to their interior and the materials and the quality controls that it has to go through before it leaves the factory. So for example, the wood that is in this Bentley, it's cut from one tree, and the reason why they do that is so that the color remains consistent and accurate throughout the entire car, and so does the wood grain patterning. And I can certainly see that in this car. There's certain elements that just flow beautifully, and it's a flawless piece of wood. Bentley actually has specific craftsmen that pick the wood, and the wood picking process takes 2 days in and of itself, let alone molding it and putting it together and actually putting it inside of the car. Now let's talk about another experience item that somewhat bleeds into the fact that this is a 7-year-old car, and that is that some of the interior ergonomics and the overall interaction with the car is mostly analog and somewhat old school, considering how modern interaction with cars has just evolved completely over the past 5 years. And what I mean by that, look at these organ stocks that open and close the air conditioning vent. It's just such a wonderful feeling thing, wonderful looking thing. And here's another example of it. Look at this key. It's an actual key. And even though there is a start-stop button, and this does have keyless entry and go, you can still put this into the ignition and turn it, and it's on the left-hand side like Porsche's. Now let's switch over into the seat and the overall comfort. It's as expected in a luxurious car like this Bentley. It's a very comfortable seat. The leather is soft and cushiony. It has good levels of adjustability. It doesn't have any bolsters, but it does hold you in really nicely. The thigh support is nice, the way how it extends out, and just overall a very, very comfortable seat. And the design of it is cool with the cross stitch, just very, very nice. All right, so now let's wrap up the interior with the infotainment system. And this is always a shortcoming when you compare it to newer cars. It doesn't have Android Auto, it doesn't have Apple CarPlay, the infotainment system graphics are not the best. It is touchscreen, but it's just nothing compared to anything you would get even in a modern economy car nowadays. So it's just something that you're probably not really going to use in this car. Just turn on the radio and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it's just a infotainment system because a car in 2015 had to have one, and I'm sure in 2015 this was top of the line and state of the art. So now let's move on to the driving portion of the review and see what this convertible drop top Bentley feels like behind the wheel. All right, so now the driving portion of the review, and as always, this is what the key looks like. It's got the flying Bentley logo with the wings, nice looking metal key, and there's some plastic, but this is a key from probably designed 10 years ago, so I guess it's okay. Otherwise, let's go ahead and turn this thing on and go for a drive. So foot on the brake, start, stop, fires up really nicely. It's still subdued and quiet as far as a V8 startup, but overall nice startup sound in this V8 or in this Continental. So let's go ahead and go for a quick drive. Parking brake, release, and let's see what this Bentley's all about. So immediately as you set off in this car, it kind of gives you this large and in charge presence, and the car itself is large feeling and provides a very unique experience when you're driving a full-size convertible car, and on top of that, the fact that it's a luxury car like this Bentley. Now let's go ahead and change some of the modes. So this does have adaptive shocks, and I'm going to put it in the sportiest setting. And then it does have air suspension, so I am putting it in its lowest mode. There's two modes, there's normal and then there's high, and the high mode is really just to make it a little bit more soft and comfortable riding. And then finally I'm going to put the transmission in S, so sport, and I believe this also remaps the throttle. And let's see what this Bentley has in performance. So all right, let's go. Come on, Bentley. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it moves. It really does move. For a big car, it's got some grunt to it. Yeah, this is fun. That's nice. The brakes are okay. Not the best brake. Definitely doesn't feel like a sports car brake. But really nice sound. Let's get another one here. Oh, the steering is nice and tight. Oh wow, it really wakes up after 4,000 RPM and gives you a nice shove. Yes, it really starts to wake up after 3,000 RPM. Let's see it again here. Wow, listen to that exhaust note. That's so surprising. Now, one thing about this Bentley is that it's not the fastest car, but it definitely delivers the speed sensation from, of course, the top-down driving experience. You get all the wind in your hair, it just feels faster. And the exhaust note is surprisingly loud and violent. It makes a lot of noise, and it was one of the most surprising things when I first jumped into this car and took it for a spin. So yeah, really nice sounding exhaust. Obviously when you're driving fast and the hard acceleration, or when you're just driving it along like this, it gives a nice satisfying V8 rumble as well. Now, let's go and talk about the suspension. And as I mentioned, I am riding in sport mode in the lowest suspension setting. And this car doesn't have like intermediate modes between sport and comfort. It's just the sportiest mode or the most comfortable. And it's like a little lever that you adjust from inside the infotainment screen. And when you're in sport, it's actually properly sporty and stiff. And the reason why I'm highlighting that is because this is a Bentley. It's a big luxury sedan or big luxury convertible car, and you're not really expecting it to give you a bunch of feedback from the road and pick up all of the road imperfections, and this does. But one of the reasons why it does that is because this is the V8S, and Bentley gives this car a specific suspension tune to make it sportier than a regular Bentley Continental GT. But now let's go ahead and put it back in the comfort mode, or the most comfortable mode, where most people are going to drive this car. And I'm going to leave the suspension in the normal ride height, and let me tell you what this thing feels like. It feels amazing. The comfort mode and the sport mode, there is such a wide difference in that sport mode is surprisingly sporty, and comfort mode is so contrary to that and kind of soaks up all the bumps and gives you a very luxurious, soft and supple ride. It's just something to behold, this Bentley's suspension and the contrasting difference between the modes. It's such a pleasurable experience, and it gives you great feedback, something that you would be able to drive easily and with joy on a daily basis, or even on a long road trip. I would imagine, of course, I don't have experience driving this thing for long periods of time, but just driving it here for a couple hours or experiencing it here in a short period of time, this thing rides so nicely. Now, overall, what is this thing and how can I describe it? Two words come to mind: boss car. And the reason why I say that is because that large and in charge presence, or that large and in charge feeling, the prestige and the luxury and the overall presence this car has, from the exterior, even as a older generation car, still gets a lot of attention and looks fantastic and almost timeless. I think this thing would look good 10, 20 years from now. And the fact that, you know, Bentley has put in a lot of effort and man hours into a handcrafted interior, it's just a different experience in this car. And when you drive a Bentley, well, and compare it to, say, a luxury German auto manufacturer, you can certainly feel the difference in the ride, in the emotional experience, because when you drive a Bentley, it feels different than just driving, say, an S-Class or a 7 Series or an A8 from Audi. There's a emotional feedback that you get, and it's not just comfort. Oh, I'm driving a big, expensive, luxury car that feels comfortable. There's an emotion involved with driving the Bentley, and it's just a very special and unique feeling. And all of these things I've described contribute to that specialness of driving a Bentley car. If you're interested in buying one of these things as a pre-owned car, I mean, go out and give it a drive, but it definitely checks the box as a big luxury GT cruiser car and fits that bill very nicely. So that's pretty much it. If you've got any questions about this thing, please send me a comment down below or a message on Instagram at DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.